Well, good morning. One of the assessors, Raju Bhatt, is not present in the building today, but he is following proceedings remotely. There may be times during the hearings when one or other or both of the assessors, who are London-based, may not be present, but they'll be following the proceedings remotely. Now, Ms. Graham, who's the witness today?
My first witness is Zahid Saeed.
Good morning, Mr. Saeed. You're going to be asked questions by Ms. Graham, whom I think you met earlier. If at any time you want a break, would you just let us know and we can take a break? I want you to feel as comfortable as possible. Can I ask you first then to say the words of the affirmation after me? I solemnly, sincerely and truly,
truly,
declare and affirm,
to declare and
affirm
affirm
that I will tell the truth,
to tell the truth,
the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Ms. Graham.
Thank you very much. Mr. Saeed, good morning.
Good morning.
You have a folder in front of you,
Yes.
and it has 3 statements in it. And you can refer to that at any time that you would like to. It's your inquiry statement, SBPI 00071, and then 2 statements that you gave to PERC on the 3rd of May and the 8th of May in 2015. So you should have all 3 of them there.
Okay.
If I want to refer to any part of your inquiry statement, I'll ask Miss Wildgoose and she'll bring it up on the screen in front of you. That's just right in front of you. But if you wish to look at the hard copy, if that's easier for you, please do so.
Okay.
All right. I'd like to begin, first of all, we heard you speak in the video that we listened to and watched on Tuesday. And you had some warm comments about your friend, Sheku Bayo. And I wondered if I could ask you just some questions about your friendship with him. For example, how long had you actually known him?
I've known Shex since the age of 17, 18.
How did you meet?
Through Addy Johnson at Bray Fife youth group.
Addy's was his brother-in-law.
That's correct.
And Bray Fife, is that an organisation?
Yes.
What do they do?
It was a youth group for teenagers to get together and from different backgrounds. We organised events, going away trips, sports events as well. Yeah.
Were you similar ages?
Yeah, we were.
Did you hit it off straight away?
We did. Became very close friends. Very good friends.
Do you mind me asking how old you are now?
I'm 38.
So you knew him a long time.
Oh, known for a very long time.
When you spoke about him very warmly on the video, you described him as your brother.
Yes, that's
Is
correct.
that how you felt about him?
Yes, I do.
How often did you see him?
Quite often. Yes. Now and again.
And did you stay in touch on the phone if you weren't seeing him or any of that?
Yes. We used to keep in touch quite often on the phone, by text or by social media.
Thanks. Can I ask you a question about his general health? Do you know if he kept good health?
Fit and well. Always at the gym after work. Health was good.
And we may hear that he occasionally took steroids.
Mm-hmm.
As part of going to the gym. Was he on any sort of programme with those?
That I don't know, I'm sorry.
Okay. Can I ask you to look at your inquiry statement, please? So that's in the hard copy. So that's SBPI's 00071. And Miss Wildgoose will bring that up on the screen. And we see on the front page, it's your statement, and it was taken on the 22nd of March this year. Do you have that in front of you?
Yes.
And for the purposes of today, can I ask you to look at the final paragraph? That's on, I think, page 22, Miss Wildgoose, paragraph 33. And you said, I believe the facts stated in this statement are true. I understand this statement may form part of the evidence before the inquiry and be published on the inquiry's website. Do you see that there?
Yes.
And you were given the chance to look over the statement, make sure you were happy with it, and then you were asked to sign it.
Correct.
And if we go to the bottom, I think you might actually see your signature. Oh, it's been redacted. You don't see it, but you did sign it, and it was signed on every page.
Yes, I was in a rush.
All right. But you did sign the statement. You were happy with it at the time.
I was in a rush.
Okay. Do you want to make any changes to your statement today?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, I'll take you through it and you can let us know. Can I ask you first of all about the Saturday night, so that's the 2nd of May, the night before. There was a family party, is that right? Sheku's family.
Yes.
And were you at that party?
Yes.
How was Sheku on that occasion?
Happy.
And I wonder if, would you mind pulling your microphone forward just ever so slightly and pointing it towards you, and that might help. I think the sound is a little bit quiet in here today. I'll do the same. You were at the party with them?
Correct.
And who else was there? Do you remember?
His family.
Was he drinking at the party?
I can't remember.
Okay. But he seemed happy to you?
Yes, full of joy.
Full of joy. How was he behaving at the party? Was there anything unusual about his behaviour at that time?
No. He was happy, he was friendly with everyone, talking, offering me food, as his family, made me feel welcome. I've known the family for a very long time, so I felt comfortable. So.
And was that how he normally behaved?
All the time, yes.
That's the way he was?
That's how I always remember him.
Can I move on to the 3rd of May? And can I ask you about after the party? So after the family party, did you go back to Sheku's house with him?
Yes.
And tell us what you were doing in Sheku's house.
I can't remember, it's been 7 years.
Can I ask you to look, please, at a paragraph in your inquiry statement? Miss Wildgoose will bring it up on the screen. And can we start with paragraph 5, please? And if you prefer, you can look at the hard copy, but you'll see that the statement says, we arrived after 10 o'clock back at Shek's house. We had a few drinks at the house and listened to some music. We were looking forward to watching the fight. Was that the Merryweather fight?
Mayweather fight, yes.
Oh, sorry, my mistake.
That's
Mayweather.
okay.
Thank you. The original plan was that we were supposed to go back to Sheikh's house to watch a boxing match. I should have carried on reading the next line. I think it was the Floyd Mayweather, and please don't ask me to pronounce the other man's name. Pacquiao?
Pacquiao.
Pacquiao, right. Okay, thank you. So we were going to watch that fight that night. We were looking forward to watching the fight, but Sheku didn't have Sky or the pay-per-view for the fight. We arranged to watch the fight at our friend Martin Dick's house. I can't remember the address of Martin's house, but Martin invited us to his house to watch the fight after he finished work at 3 a.m. So does Martin work shifts?
Yes.
And was that the plan for that evening?
It was a last-minute plan.
Right.
I think so. Can't remember, honestly, 7 years ago.
But now that you see the statement there, does that remind you?
Yes.
And then can we look at paragraph 6, please? Thank you. And you were asked by the inquiry team when you gave this statement in March. I am asked what we were doing between arriving at Sheku's house and going to Martin Dick's house. I'm asked how Sheku was presenting at that time. Sheku was so happy and full of joy. We had music on and were talking. I'm afraid there were drugs used. Sheku had taken Mdma and Ecstasy. We were both taking substances. Sheku had taken drugs before in my company. He would take them just the same as everybody else when everybody's going on a night out or getting together with friends. Recreational use. I am asked about the quantity Sheku took that night. I don't know, to be honest, because I wasn't really paying attention or measuring, but Sheku is quite safe with drugs. He would always give drugs in a smaller dose because he had explained to me that he was always worried about someone taking a stroke or the side effects you can have with drugs. He would not overdo it with drugs. I'm asked about the previous occasions in which Sheku has taken drugs and the effect it had on him. Like I said, he would be happy, full of joy, talkative, and full of energy and love. And that's paragraph 6 of your statement. I'd like to ask you some more questions about that. Okay. Can we go up to the top, please, so that we can see it as I go through? Can you tell me, what's the difference between MDMA and ecstasy?
I don't know, I'm sorry.
What's your understanding? Because you've made the distinction there, and I'm not sure what the distinction is.
I really don't know, I'm sorry.
Okay. Are they different colours?
I can't remember really, 7 years ago, I'm sorry.
Well, I'm asking you about your statement, which you gave in March.
I can't remember, honestly, 7 years ago.
Well, can I ask you about paragraph 30 of your statement, Mr. Saeed? Because this is the statement that you've told us you gave on the 22nd of March this year to a member of the inquiry team. And on the 22nd of March, you said, I'm asked about the appearance of MDMA. It was a crystal brown look. That might be brown, I don't know. It is a brownish white colour. It is crystal like a sugar cube. I'm asked whether the white substance in the money bag could have been MDMA. Yes, in my view, that was MDMA. I am asked about the purple tablets. They were ecstasy. So it seems on the 22nd of March you remembered that they were different colours and you gave an explanation. Are you saying now that...
It's been 7 years. I really can't remember anything, to be honest.
Well, that's very disappointing, Mr. Saeed, because I'm struggling to understand why you remembered in March, but you're not remembering today. There's no judgment here. We would just really like you to explain what you said in your statement.
I can't remember. I think maybe.
Maybe. Maybe their MDMA is a different colour from the
I
ecstasy.
really don't know anything about drugs. I'm sorry.
Well, your
I did
statement would suggest that you do know something.
Aftershock was killed, yes, when I did my research online.
Okay, well, tell us what you know now about the distinction between MDMA and ecstasy.
What I know now, what I read online, or
Well, tell me what you understand the distinction to be now.
what I read online, that it makes you happy, and I really don't know. I'm sorry.
What is it you don't know? Can you understand that I'm struggling to understand why you've given this statement on the 22nd of March, giving quite a lot of explanation and information, and you signed that statement.
In a rush.
Well, in a rush or otherwise, you weren't forced to sign the statement, and you did sign it, and now you've come here today for some reason, and you're saying you know nothing.
I didn't ask to be here.
I appreciate
And
that.
to be honest, I only given half a statement, and the second half a statement I would like to issue that today, if that's okay.
Well, no, it's not okay at the moment.
How come?
Do you understand that we have a recording of your statement, of you speaking? And I understand that you spent around 3 hours with a member of the inquiry team. I don't really want to have to play that recording, but that is an option open to us.
Okay.
Obviously, I'd much rather just simply go through your statement and ask you some additional short questions about it than have to go through that process. Would you like to have a think about it?
Okay. Yes.
You'd like to have a think about things for a moment?
Yes.
Right. Thank you. I wonder if it would be possible to have just a very brief recess at the moment. Thank you.
Yes, Miss Graham.
Mr. Saeed, during the break, I've now been given a hard copy of the original statement from the 22nd of March. And as part of this, I've asked for you to be given a hard copy of this, and also for the chair to be given a hard copy. Now, we're the only 3 people in the room that have this version, which is unredacted. Let me just check that the chair has the copy. Thank you. Would you look please at the last page? You'll now be able to see your signature on this page at the bottom. Is that correct? Can you see that?
Yes.
And do you also see the same signature at the bottom of every page?
Yes.
14 pages,
That's correct.
all signed at the bottom
Yes.
by you.
That's correct.
And look at paragraph 33 on the last page, please. Let me just read this out. I believe the facts stated in this witness statement are true. Do you see that?
That's correct.
And you've signed that page with that declaration.
As I said before, I was in a rush and I signed it.
You've signed that page with that declaration. This is a formal inquiry set up under statute. You've signed that page of a witness inquiry statement with that declaration in it.
Correct.
It then goes on to say, I understand that this statement may form part of the evidence before the inquiry and be published on the inquiry's website. So this also says the statement may form part of the evidence. This statement, which has been signed by you, is already evidence before this inquiry. Do you understand that?
I think so.
Even if you leave now and give no more evidence, Mr. Saeed, this statement that you have signed, the 14 pages that you have signed, is part of the evidence to this inquiry. It's available to the chair to consider. It's available to the core participants, and it will be published on the website of the inquiry. Do you understand that?
I think so.
And you also understand that the inquiry has a recording, a full recording of everything that you said to Miss Pang, who's sitting next to you, who's a member of the inquiry team. She's the deputy solicitor to this inquiry. Do you understand that that was being recorded and we have that recording?
Yes.
And that's available to me to play in its entirety to this inquiry if I require to do so.
Yes.
Everything you said is recorded and I can play it if I have to. Is that your phone in your pocket? Would you turn it off, please?
Sorry.
You're under oath in a hearing. Is your phone on?
Yes.
Thank you very much. So you understand that I can play that whole recording if I need to.
Yes.
I do not wish to do that, Mr. Saeed.
You have to understand this is quite traumatising for myself.
I completely
And I've been through-
understand.
you have to understand that I have went through 2 major traumas. So please, I would like to take this opportunity to explain the trauma I have been through for the last 8 years. It's affected my well-being.
think we'll take a break at this point and assess the situation. Yes, Miss Graham.
Before that short break, you had opened up and told us about the trauma that you've experienced in the past few years.
Years. One. First one was my son, who was killed. Then my friend, who was murdered in police custody. That's caused trauma, and I don't understand why I'm here to give a statement. When Sheikh was alive, walking, the question she should be asking is the police officers, not me. Not me.
Well, could I explain to you, Mr. Saeed, that the inquiry is trying to find out the truth about all the events?
If you want to find out the truth, you should ask the officers who were there at the scene.
I want to reassure you that we absolutely will be asking the officers at the scene. We'll be asking a lot of questions of the officers. The reason we're starting with you is I'm trying to explain the story in a chronological order. So we'll be getting on to the officers once we've heard evidence about the initial events, and then we'll move on to those at Hayfield Road. So please don't feel that you're the only person that's being asked to come here and give evidence. You're not. You're the first of many witnesses. And you're an important witness for me. You've given a statement. And I'm wondering, are you willing to help me go through your statement today?
I am willing to help, yes, but I'm also willing to give my second half of the statement so I don't have to be here again.
Well, can we start with first things first, please? It would really help me today if we could go to your statement. I will try and minimise the questions I ask you, and we will get through this as quickly as we possibly can.
I would like to finish this statement today, including my second statement as well, if that's okay, please. I honestly don't want to be here.
I realise you don't want to be
If you can understand how trauma feels.
Well, what I will do, Mr. Saeed, I don't want to go into that today, but what I will do is we can get a note of this statement for the later parts, and I will do my best not to call you. I will look at it, I will see what you've said in your later statement, and I will do my best.
I prefer to get it done over and done today so it's all recorded and I don't have to be here again.
I understand you prefer that, but that's the best I could offer today. Are you willing to go through the first part?
I'm willing to go through both parts.
I know, but what
Checks and the police, how I was assaulted in police custody, how they held me for 11 hours in police custody without offering me any liquid and police and food. How I was dehumanised.
I want to get all of this evidence out at the right time. I absolutely want to get all the details of that from you. That is a very important part of the inquiry, and what you've got to tell us is a very important part of the inquiry. But unfortunately, for the purposes of this hearing, we're looking at the early events, and I will go through those events with you as quickly as I can, and we will focus on what you've got to tell us at a later time in relation to being at the police station. But I will look at your statement for that part, and I will see if I can avoid calling you to give evidence later. So this might be the only time that you're called to give evidence, and I will do my absolute best to avoid calling you again.
I would like to still give my second statement today.
It won't be enough for me, unfortunately, Mr. Saeed, because I'm not in a position to address that with you. We've got a lot of technology that comes up on the screen. Now, there's a lot of things that I would want to put to you, but we don't have them set up on the screen for today. Miss Wildgoose has to organise things well in advance so we can bring things up on the screen. It's not simple like just opening a document. So we're not in a position to do that today. But we will do our best not to have to call you
I'm
again.
afraid it's not good enough.
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Saeed, but you're here under a citation. You've sworn an oath to tell the truth.
I am. I'm here to
And
tell
I've
the truth,
offered-
but not about the truth.
Good. Well, can we start with your statement? Because I think the quicker we get onto this statement, the more progress we'll make, and then I can let you go. Are you willing to help me with
Yes,
this?
I am willing to help.
Let's start then, and we can make a lot of progress with this statement. Let's get through this. Could you have the statement on the screen, please? You have a hard copy, Mr. Saeed. You gave an explanation about the drugs in paragraph 6 that were taken late 2nd of May, early 3rd of May. I'll just ask you a few questions about that, and let's get this done. Did you take the same type of drugs that evening as Shekubio?
I can't remember.
Did you take the same amount as Shekubio?
Can't remember.
When did you stop taking drugs that evening?
I didn't know there was any drugs.
You understand you're under oath, Mr. Saeed?
Yes.
You understand that I can cite you for another day and play the entire recording to you?
Correct. Which I was under trauma.
Well, are you simply intending to answer all my questions now?
Hopefully
that
today.
you can't remember?
Hopefully, yes.
Well, if that's your intention, Mr. Saeed, I'm sorry, but I won't be asking you any more questions today, and I'll have to bring you back another day. If you're not willing to help me go through this statement today, I will have to consider citing you for another day at the convenience of the inquiry. I'd rather not do that, you understand. I'd rather just get through the statement now.
Okay, I'll do my best.
All right, thank you. So can I ask you again, did you take the same type of drugs as Sheku that night?
I think so, 7 years ago.
Did you take the same amount as Sheku?
I can't remember. Honestly, I really can't remember.
Okay. Do you remember when you stopped taking drugs?
A very long time ago.
You talk about going to Martin Dick's house to
Correct.
watch the fight. Did you stop taking drugs before you went to Martin Dick's house?
Yes.
Do you remember if Sheku stopped taking drugs before you both went to Martin Dick's?
I can't remember. Honestly, I can't remember.
Were you taking drugs from the same supply?
Honestly, I really can't remember 7 years ago.
Do you remember anything about the type of drugs that you took?
I really can't remember, to be honest. It was 7 years ago, to be honest. It was a very long time ago.
You'll remember I asked you about the difference between Mdma and Ecstasy, and I showed you paragraph 30 of your statement, and you described one as brown coloured, a crystal brown, and one as a tablet, which I think was purple. This was paragraph 30. Purple tablets, yes. So the purple tablets were ecstasy, and the crystal brown sugar cube was MDMA. Does that prompt your memory?
A little bit, yes.
Does that sound about right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's been a long time, 7 years ago. I can't really remember.
All right. You also mentioned in your statement, this is paragraphs 7 and 8, that there had been an incident earlier that year where Sheku's behaviour had changed and seemed out of character. Do you see a sort of negative experience after taking drugs in the beginning of 2015? That's paragraph 7. At a friend's house at a party. Take a moment to read that if it helps. And then paragraph 8 says, I'm asked what substances he was taking that night. That's the earlier in 2015. It was the same, MDMA and ecstasy. And then you were asked about the reaction. Do you have any recollection of the events earlier in 2015 where his behaviour changed?
Honestly, I can't remember. It was 7 years ago. I'm not sure if it was alcohol or it was drugs. I really can't remember.
It sounds like you helped him that night.
Sorry?
It sounds like you helped him on that occasion.
Well, that's what friends do.
So you were, if he was having a difficulty, you would help him out.
I will help anybody who is having a difficult moment.
You help me now.
Yes, of course.
Thank you. I want to talk about Martin Dick's house. You've described in your statement about the change in behaviour. And I wonder if you could help the chair just by giving us a little bit more information about how the change manifested itself, how it appeared when he was at Martin Dick's.
Okay.
Could you do that, please?
His
Could you describe how his behaviour changed?
behaviour changed. Gosh. I really can't remember.
Would you look at paragraph 11, please? So you describe going to Martin's house just after 4, and there's conversation, and then at the end of the bottom of that screen, you'll see it says there was a slight awkwardness in the room had developed. And then if you could carry on. And you say, line 4, I think he was feeling a bit agitated and he was acting out of character. And the mood wasn't the same, he was agitated. And I felt like it was uncomfortable. And You see, my concern was that I didn't know if he had used any more substances when I left him earlier in the night. I felt I was still normal. I didn't take any more substances when I left him for that period. When I came back to pick him up, I was still the same person and full of joy, and you were concerned he'd maybe taken more. Do you remember the situation becoming agitated or slightly awkward?
It was 7 years ago, I can't remember.
I have a sense, Mr. Saeed, that you're becoming more reluctant again to talk about your statement.
As I said before, last time I seen Sheikh, he was walking and breathing. He was fine. Until the police murdered him.
The biggest help you could be to your friend, your brother, Sheikh, right now, is to help the chair understand some of what you've said in your statement. And that is the biggest help you personally could be to him. And I would like you to help.
To who? To Sheikh?
The biggest help
Or
you
to the
could be.
inquiry?
The biggest help you could be to Sheikh right now is to tell the chair the whole truth about everything that happened, so he
Well,
can consider it all.
Well, the truth is that he was murdered by police custody. What else is there to tell?
Well, the questions I'm asking you are about the change in his behaviour and how that is evidence that we would like to have more information about, so I can then use that later to ask experts about it. And that would be a very big help. I appreciate you might not see the whole picture of the inquiry. It's going to go on a long time. But if you can provide us with that information, we will use it. It will be very valuable. What is not helpful to Sheikh and is not helpful to the inquiry is you simply saying you don't remember because it was 7 years ago, because I'm sitting here looking at a statement you gave on the 22nd of March.
Which I was in a rush and I was in like as I explained before.
I don't really want to go back over this, Mr. Saeed, but are you willing to help?
Of course I'm willing to help.
Well, can I ask you to answer my questions?
I will try and answer your questions.
Tell me about the change in Sheku bio when he was at Martin Dick's house.
That he was fine
When?
at Martin's house.
For the whole time?
Oh, he was breathing.
I'm asking you about his behaviour. I know he was breathing. I'm asking you about the change in his behaviour. If you're not willing to answer any of these questions, then I think we'll have to call it a day, Mr. Saeed.
His behaviour.
Mr. Saeed, it's been made clear to you, the position, and I would like you to reflect on it, and I would like you to start answering the questions, because you did at the very beginning
Correct. Yes,
take an oath to tell the truth,
that's right.
and the whole truth,
Mm-hmm.
and nothing but the truth.
Okay.
And you gave a statement in March. And I would very much like you now to start fully answering the questions Because it's obvious by looking at this statement that when you saw Ms. Pang in March, you gave her a lot of information. And that information is before me and it's available to me as evidence, and that's very helpful. But Ms. Graham wants just to ask some further questions to highlight some of the things that are already in your statement. Do you understand that?
Yes.
And I would like you to answer these questions if you would. Are you going to do that now? Because you're obliged to do so.
Yes.
Very well.
Thank you. So we're talking about the time when he's in Martin Dick's house, and you describe a change in his behaviour. Can you tell me how his behaviour changed?
He wasn't being himself. His character changed.
In what way?
He looked confused and agitated.
What was it about him that made you say he looked confused?
His personality changed.
You've told us how he normally was, and he'd been happy and full of joy previously.
Yes.
How did it change?
The conversations were different. He was losing track of the conversation that me, Martin, and Kirsty were having.
And was that the only difference?
He was losing track of the conversation we were having. As I said, wasn't. His character changed. He felt agitated, looked agitated.
You've used the word in your statement, awkwardness. Was there an awkwardness?
No.
No. How did it come about that he left Martin Dick's house? Tell me about that moment.
He got up and left.
Was that sudden?
No.
Had the fight finished?
It was on pause.
Did he say anything before he left?
I can't remember.
What did you do?
I was concerned about him
Why?
because he's a friend of mine.
But why were you concerned? I understand he was a friend, but why were you concerned when he left the house?
Because where he goes, I go. And we came together, went together to Martin's house, and I'm assuming that we'll leave together.
So did you follow him out?
Yes.
And when you followed him out, was he outside the house waiting for you?
I can't remember.
Well, Mr. Saeed, I really don't want to have to go through the statement line by line, saying what you've said in your statement. But in your statement, you say that he left and you followed him and he wasn't there when you went outside. So are you saying that since the 22nd of March, you've completely lost your memory of that?
I haven't lost my memory. It's trauma.
Well, what was it that we did on the 22nd of March that allowed you to get over that trauma that is not allowing you to get over it today?
That I'm here?
Being in the hearing room.
Yes.
Do you think if we could make an arrangement to take your evidence in a different setting, that that would allow you to get over the trauma?
I'm not sure.
Is it something you'd be willing to try if we looked into it?
I'd like to finish this today, if that's okay.
Well, I don't think we're going to be able to. I'm sorry, Mr. Saeed. I think that I would like to end this examination at the moment today, and I think I'd like an opportunity to look into maybe an alternative environment or other arrangements that might permit Mr. Saeed to continue more effectively with this examination, if that's possible.
Yes, very well. We'll stop there, Mr. Saeed, but the inquiry will keep in touch with you and will require you at some stage to give further evidence. Do you understand that?
Yes.
And secondly, of course, I shall really want to hear your evidence about what happened at the police station and so forth afterwards.
Okay.
Well, we'll leave it at that today. I think we'll adjourn briefly to allow you to rearrange things. Yeah. Now, Miss Graham.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Oh, sorry. I'm a little bit enthusiastic
Yes.
this morning.
And it's Mr. Morgan, is it?
Yes, it's Neil Morgan.
Neil Morgan. Mr. Morgan, before you are asked questions by Miss Graham, would you raise your right hand and say the words of the oath after me?
Yes.
I swear by Almighty God
I swear by Almighty God
that I will tell the truth,
that I will tell the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Now, Miss Graham.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Mr.
Morning.
Morgan. I'm going to ask you a few questions, primarily in relation to an inquiry statement that you've very kindly provided to the inquiry already. Now, you'll see the black folder right in front of you.
Yes.
You're going to have a hard copy of that right in front of you. Please feel free to read through it or look through it as you wish. It's there for your use.
Okay.
Now, I'll be asking you one or two questions about maybe certain paragraphs. When that happens, Miss Wildgoose there is going to put them up on the screen. So you'll see the screen right in front of
Oh,
you.
yeah.
So the paragraph will be on that screen as well.
Okay.
So, but if you prefer the hard copy, that's there for you too.
That's no problem.
Great, thank you
Okay.
so much. So, can I just look at that inquiry statement for a moment? Just the front page, please, Miss Wildgoose. SBPI 00024. And we'll see that it was taken by telephone on Tuesday, the 18th of January this year. Do you
Yes.
recognise that?
Yes.
And it was signed by you on the 5th of April, so a few months later. And do you remember giving that statement and do you remember signing it?
I do.
And that was on every page.
Yes.
Thank you. And you were given the opportunity to make any changes if you wanted, but you didn't make any.
No.
So you're happy with that statement?
I am.
Thank you. And you'll see the final paragraph, which Miss Wildgoose will move on to, says, 55, I believe the facts stated in this witness statement are true, and I understand that this statement may form part of the evidence before the inquiry and be published on the inquiry's website.
Yeah.
And you're happy with
I am.
that? Thank you. And so this statement will be available to the chair to look at in its entirety. But for the purposes of today, I won't go through every line with you.
Okay.
Thank you. Right, before I go through some of the paragraphs there, could you just begin by telling everyone a little about how you knew Sheku Bayo?
Okay. He lived opposite me, and I never knew him great as a friend, but just as a neighbour. But we passed each other often. I mean, it was high, smile, always smiling. It was nice, just generally nice neighbourly guy.
And you got on with him?
Yeah.
What did you call him?
Chris, he told me his name was Chris, so I knew him as Chris.
So when we see references in your statement to Chris,
Yeah.
you're actually referring, you now know that's Sheku Bayo?
Yes.
Thank you. And could you describe his personality? You've given us a little bit of information.
To what I saw, he was just a nice, pleasant, friendly, nice guy.
Yeah.
Just a really nice guy. Never no trouble, nothing. Just nice.
Thank you. And what about his physique? Physically, what did he look like?
Yeah, you could tell he looked after himself. I mean, yeah, just.
What do you mean by that?
Oh, he worked out. You could tell. I mean, he wasn't a giant. I mean, like the Hulk, but you know, he nice and trim. He kept looking after himself.
Thank you. I'd like to ask you about paragraph 11 of your statement. So Miss Wildgoose will bring that up on the screen. And you say your shift ended at 6 in the morning, and we're talking about the 3rd of May 2015, and you got home about 20 or 25 past 6, and there was boxing on. We've heard there was a fight, a Merryweather fight.
I'm not sure of the fire. Remember, there was a boxing fight on that morning.
Okay.
Earlier was that morning. I don't know if it was on at the time I come home from work, but I knew it was on earlier was that morning, yeah.
Thank you. And then you came in, made yourself, no doubt, a well-earned cup of coffee, and when you were drinking the coffee, I think your daughter brought something to your attention.
Yes.
Tell us about that. What happened?
My daughter came down the stairs and thought that saw Chris fighting someone in another neighbour's front garden. And what my daughter said was she thought that perhaps it was an elderly couple that owned this house, thought that someone was robbing it. So I went out to assist Chris.
What made you think someone might have been robbing the house?
We've had a few robberies in that street. And with them being an old couple, we thought perhaps it had been a target. Chris might have seen them or something, or whatever, I don't know. And I just thought, well, I'll go out and help Chris.
And did you go out?
I did go out.
Yeah. And I wonder if you'd look at a photograph for me. Perk 18266, Miss Wildgoose. We have a couple of photographs. If we look at photograph 4, first of all, perhaps. Sorry, that's the wrong number. Go back to the beginning, thank you. Yes. First photograph. Do you recognise that area shown in that photograph? And was this anywhere near where you're describing?
No.
Oh, no. Right.
No, it was the other side.
The other side? The other side of the street?
The house. It was...
Oh, the one on the left?
Yeah, Bob and the neighbours, Bob and Helen, they lived a few doors along from Chris, again.
Right, okay.
The other way.
Would you turn to photograph 10, please? Is this a different property or the rear of the property?
It's about 2 houses or more to the left.
Right.
The property is with
so it was
my
further
daughter's.
down again?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. We'll leave those photographs for the moment. Tell us, when you left your property, your house, what did you see?
When I first came out to the house, I saw nothing. So I think I went to go around the back, where you have to go down the lane and around, and still nothing was happening. So I was making my way back home again, and then I saw Chris.
Right. I wonder if I could ask you to look at a map. That might help me understand where you were.
Yeah.
If Miss Wildgoose could bring up the overview, the scene overview. So this is SBPI 00104. If you'll bear with us for a moment, this has got a good map on it.
Okay.
Thank you. A little bit closer, if that's okay. That's fine, thank you. If we could pause it there, please. We heard evidence about this yesterday. Do you see on the left-hand side? You can see in yellow Temple Hall Avenue.
Yes.
And parallel to that, further up is Arran Crescent.
Yes.
Could you tell us roughly where your house is? That you can. Now, I'll tell you, Mr. Morgan, you can touch the screen of this, the screen in front of you, and a red circle will appear.
Okay.
And if you make a mistake, you can touch the red circle again and move it around.
Okay. No
And
problem.
if you don't like it at all, just move it down to the bottom of the screen and we'll just leave it.
Okay.
Okay? Right. So the red circle appears, and that's in the middle of where it says Arran Crescent. Is that where your house was?
Centre of the street. Over the side.
When you talk about going round the lane, round the side of the houses, where was that? Can we see that on this map?
You can't really. Can I mark it? Can you see it if I put my finger?
We can
on
do smaller circles, or you can do a line. Would you rather do a line?
A line, yeah.
A line. Let's just give Miss Wildgoose a moment. That's it, ready to move. You can draw a line where the lane was.
Okay. If you go
Oh, try
Yeah.
it. Try it again.
Yeah. No. You go up this here. There's a row of garages, and you can go around the back. Here.
Oh, I see. So the sort of grey area that sticks up from Arran Crescent, is that a lane?
Yeah, that's like a garage lot. But then the lane, the lane's actually not there, but the lane runs at the back of the
Right.
gardens here then.
Right. So you had a look round the back, you came back to the front. And what did you see on the way back to the front of your house?
Chris,
Where was he?
on my side of the street, a few houses down from where I live.
What was he wearing at that point?
I can't actually remember.
What was he doing?
Just walking, casual.
You described the fight a moment ago.
I never saw
You never
the
saw
fight or anything.
So when you saw him walking, what did you do?
I approached him and asked him if anyone was trying to rob Bob and Ellen's, and he said, no, nobody's trying to rob no one. Said, okay. And that's when I noticed then
What did you notice?
he was carrying a knife.
What hand was he carrying it in?
Like the right hand, I think, yeah.
Could you describe the knife for us?
Yeah. It was a big kitchen knife, you know, like when you get the block of 5 or 6 in a block, it would be the biggest one out of there.
Mm-hmm. Could you describe the length of the blade?
Yeah, I would say it would be about 8 inches, 8 inches.
Thank you. Do you remember the colour of the handle?
I can't.
Do you think you'd recognise that knife now?
No, I would have back then. But I've got something in my head that I think it was, but I don't want to say anything just in case I'm wrong.
Okay. Could I ask you to look at something for me, please?
Yeah.
And Miss Wildgoose will hand this to you in a moment. She'll bring it out of her secret drawer.
Okay.
Now this is a label and the number is PERC 995, so you can pick that up and touch it, Mr. Morgan. Don't worry about, we won't be opening it or taking it out.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Miss Wildgoose has actually put a photograph on the screen, which is a photograph of what's contained in that plastic tub.
What I actually thought in my head is what it does look like there.
Oh, thank you. That's very helpful. Can I ask you about how you approached Chris in the street when you saw him? Did you have any concerns at that point about approaching him?
No, not at all. Not at all.
And when you approached him, was he facing towards you or was he facing away from you?
Facing away from me then.
How did you attract his attention if he was facing away from you?
Called him.
Oh. And after you called him, what did he do? What was his response?
Stopped and turned around. By that time I had caught up with him then.
And tell us about the discussion you had with him.
Well, I asked him if someone was trying to rob Bob and Ellen's, and he turned around to me and he says, no one's robbing anyone. That's when I noticed he was carrying a knife. I said, what are you doing with that? I said, look, you can't walk around with that. You're going to get done. I said, look, come back to the house. Something's upset you. Come back, have a cup of coffee, a cup of tea. Need to settle down. Just come back. And he said, no, I'm fine. I'm all right. I'm fine.
Okay. How far away were you from him when you had this conversation?
Oh, a couple of feet. Just right up close-ish.
And how did he look to you at that time?
He wasn't himself. I don't know if it was too much drink or anything else, I'm not sure, but he was gazy, if you know what I mean. He wasn't in a rage or anything like that, but just you could could tell if someone's been on something, do you mean, like if it was too much drink. I know the boxing was on, so it could have been like that, and it was early in the morning. Just he wasn't himself.
When you use the word gazy,
Yeah.
describe his eyes to me.
They were steady. I was gonna just steady, really, sort of like that.
Thanks. Did you have any impression at that time about the sort of mood that he was in?
Other than he seemed quite calm, like I said, he wasn't in a fit of rage or anything like that. He seemed himself, but with a knife.
You've told us about the conversation. Was he doing anything in particular with the knife when you were speaking to him?
Just tapping it on his leg, and I said to him, when I said to him, you can't go around with that knife, you'll get done. He did turn around to me and he says, look, it's not even sharp. And he sort of like, he said, look, it's not even sharp. Poked it at my belly. Not hard or anything, just poke.
When you say poked it, you're gesturing with your hand there.
Yeah.
Would you mind standing up and just demonstrating that for the chair? Because there's a panel on
Yeah.
the desk and he might not be able to see it completely.
Yeah,
Thank
okay,
you.
he just had the knife and he says, look, it's not even sharp. Look, just went like that.
When he did, you may sit down
Sorry.
again. Thank you. Did he touch you with the knife when
Yes.
he did that poking?
Slightly,
Slightly.
yeah.
And what was your reaction to that?
Nothing really, no reaction. I still didn't feel threatened by him. My biggest was concerned is I really wanted him to come home and just settle down whatever he was doing. It was upset him, so just come in, have a cup of coffee, calm down. That's all.
Is your recollection of that quite clear?
Yes, yeah.
So when you spoke to Perk on the 7th of May 2015, you didn't mention the poking with the knife?
No,
Do
I
you
didn't.
remember why?
No, I don't think perhaps I never got asked or that. I do remember, but I can't remember not telling anybody, to be honest with you.
Was there any reason you wouldn't have told somebody?
Well, I didn't feel threatened. It wasn't something I thought someone needed to know or nothing. You know what I mean? He never done it in a violent way or anything. Like I was just showing me, look, it's not even sharp. So I didn't think it was relevant at the time. Or
Thank you. You invited him in for a cuppa or a coffee,
yeah,
and some people might think, goodness, that's quite surprising since he was holding a knife.
my wife did.
What, your wife felt that?
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't feel wary about that at that stage?
No, not at all. Perhaps I should have, but I didn't.
Do you remember what time this was?
I couldn't put a specific time in it. I come home. It could have been around about 7ish, past 7ish. It'd be still quite early-ish in the morning.
Had you finished your coffee by the time you went out the house?
No, I don't think I had finished it.
Where did Chris or Sheku go after your conversation with him?
He walked away then towards Temple Hall Avenue, Crammon Gardens way.
Could we look at the map again?
Yeah.
Would you mind helping me with
Yeah.
that? I wonder, Miss Wildgoose, if we could bring the overview back on. So you showed us earlier, Mr. Morgan, the area in Arran Crescent where you
Yeah.
were. And you've mentioned Temple Hall Avenue. Do you see that on the
Yeah,
map?
it was Crammon Gardens. You see at the end of our street, you walk towards that way.
Yeah. Would you be able to, maybe the line will work this time. I wonder if you could draw a line on the map to show the chair what area you're going in.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, that he went in after your conversation.
Yeah.
Did you see which direction he went in after he went into Cramond Gardens?
No, I didn't.
Thank you. As he walked away from you, along Arran Crescent towards Cramond Gardens, did you see what he did with the knife?
No.
I would like you to look at some footage, and I'll pause the screen. So Miss Wildgoose is going to get this up on the screen for me now.
Okay.
So if you could just bear with me for a moment. This is the evidence video timeline, SBPI 00046. And I'd like to have it on the screen closer to 7:09:20. Right. You'll see this on the screen, Mr. Morgan. If we could just pause that for a second, thank you. We've heard evidence that this is taken from a dash cam on a vehicle.
Okay.
And you'll see on the top left-hand corner, there's a grey box that says real time.
Right.
Now, we've also heard evidence about this yesterday that says this is the real time, the time it was when the
Okay.
footage was taken. And it's 7:09 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
It's on the 3rd of May 2015, and it's 20 seconds past that.
Mm-hmm.
You can completely ignore the little buttons under that, the sort of coloured boxes.
Okay.
And you'll see this on the screen in the left-hand side. It says PERC, there's a number, and it says dash cam footage.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to look at.
Okay.
And I'm literally going to ask Miss Wildgoose in a moment just to play that just for about 10 seconds or so.
Okay.
And you'll see a figure. And I'm going to play it once and then ask you to watch it, and then I'll come back to it and I'll ask you some questions once
Yeah.
we've watched it.
Okay.
Thank you. Miss Wildgoose. Thank you. And if we could pause that and go back to just after 7:09:20. Thank you, and just a little bit closer with the figure in sight, if you don't mind. If you could pause it there, please. Do you recognise the road by any chance?
I recognise the road,
What
yes.
road is it?
That's Temple Hall Avenue.
That's Temple Hall. And that's the road that we were looking at earlier in the map a moment ago. Temple Hall Avenue.
Yes, the one parallel to the street.
And I don't know if you'd like another opportunity to see this, but do you recognise the figure that we've watched in this?
I think I do. It's
Who
not
do you
very-
think it is?
I think it's Chris.
Chris. Thank you. How far is this part of Temple Hall Avenue from Arran Crescent?
Maybe 300 metres, something like that.
Is Cramond Gardens close to this area?
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Where is it in relation to what we see on the screen?
That's about maybe 200 metres away from that area.
Thank you. If we can put that off the screen, thank you. And could we go back to the map for a second? And while Miss Wildgoose gets that on, you've talked about Arran Crescent, Cramond Gardens and Temple Hall Avenue.
Yeah,
If you follow along Temple Hall Avenue and come down Henry Road, is there a pub there called Gallagher's Pub?
yes.
What's it called now?
The White, no. I'm not 100% sure. It's changed hands a few times. It was the White Heather, then it was the Gallagher's, and I'm not 100% sure what it's called now.
You're not a regular there
No,
then?
no, I'm not, no.
Okay. Do you have, Mr. Morgan, any special skills or experience in approaching someone with a knife or dealing with someone who looks...
No.
No. And I noticed you didn't phone the police after your conversation with
No, I
Sheikh
didn't,
Noor.
no.
Why not?
I think if he was in a rage, like, I know he was carrying a knife, and perhaps I should have phoned the police. But if he was in a rage and I thought, oh, he's after someone, then yes, I think I would have done it then. But because he was so calm, okay, not himself, but so calm, I thought, I don't know, I never did. I'll apologise for that, I'm afraid.
Not at all. Thank you very much. And that concludes my questions for this witness.
I'm now addressing the legal representatives. No application under Rule 9, no written application was placed before me. Do any legal representatives wish to make an application at this stage? No, thank you. Very well, that completes your evidence, Mr. Morgan, and thank you very much for coming to the inquiry and giving your evidence. Will somebody take, Mr. the Secretary will take you out, Mr. Crowther. Now, who's the next witness, Mr. Graham?
Next witness is Naomi Rhodes. Good afternoon, Miss Rhodes.
Good afternoon.
You're going to be asked questions by Miss Graham, who's at the far end of the table. Before that happens, will you take the affirmation and say the words after me? I solemnly,
solemnly,
sincerely and truly
sincerely and truly
declare and affirm
declare and affirm
that I will tell the truth,
that I will tell the truth,
the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Miss Graham.
Hello,
Hello.
Miss Rhodes. You are Naomi Rhodes,
Yep,
and the inquiry have all your details.
yep,
Thank you. Do you see that black folder sitting right in front of you?
I do, yes.
Well, let me tell you, inside that, you're going to see copies of 2 statements, and you can refer to them at any stage if you want to. Please feel free to open it.
Yep,
You'll see, first of all, there's an inquiry statement that you gave to the inquiry, and there's also a statement that you gave to PERC.
yep.
So, before I move on to your statements, because I'm going to ask you some questions about those, and during that I might ask for a particular paragraph to go up on the screen. You'll see the screen in front of you, and Miss Wildgoose can get things up on the screen.
Yep.
But if you'd like to see what's around it in the statement, you can just open the folder.
Right.
But before I do that, can I ask you, in May 2015 you were living in Arran Crescent,
Correct, yes.
and I'd like to ask you a little bit about Shekubayo.
Yep.
How did you know him?
Well, I stayed about 3 doors down from where I stood. He was a good neighbour, friendly natured. I spoke, I had a smile on his face.
How did you get on with him?
Yeah, he was fine. Yeah, I didn't really know him as a friend, but just as a neighbour. But he always spoke to us and that.
And was he a good neighbour?
Oh yeah, never any hassle with him or anything.
Thank you. How long had you known him at that point?
Roughly about 4 years.
Could I ask you to look at the inquiry statement, which is SBPI 00070? You'll see a part of the first page of that. It's on the screen now. And you'll see it was taken on Wednesday, the 6th of April this year.
Yep,
And do you remember giving this statement?
I do, yes.
That's good. Would you look at the final page, please? And now, for the purposes of the public hearings, certain things have been blacked out, so people's personal details aren't always obvious. But you'll see that at some point you've applied your signature to that page and to every page of the statement. And were you advised that this statement would be effectively evidence to the chair?
I did, yes.
And that you were, by signing it, you were agreeing that what you were saying was true?
Yes.
Was the truth? And that this would be available to the chair to consider what you've said?
Yes, I did, yes.
Thank you. And you're happy with that?
Yes, I am.
And you were happy with the statement?
Yeah.
Thank you. Can I focus on paragraph 6 to paragraph 10? Lovely. And use paragraph 6, you say you were woken up by shouting outside of your bedroom window around 6 a.m. on Sunday the 3rd of May 2015. And when you heard it, you got up to look out of the window
Yes.
in your bedroom. Can I ask you, when you got up and looked out the window, tell us what you saw.
So 2 males fighting on outside my gate, and I realised one of them to be Sheku.
And when you say outside your gate, was that at the front of your house or the rear of your house?
In front of my house.
And at that time, when you were living in Arran Crescent, do you remember what the number was?
26.
And you've said 2 men, one of them was Sheku.
Sheku.
What was Sheku wearing?
I can't remember.
Do you remember anything about the other man?
No, sorry.
Can you describe Sheku at the time in any way?
He wasn't his normal style anyway.
Why do you say that?
Just one fighting and shouting and stuff.
What was he shouting?
Can't remember.
What about the other man? Was he shouting?
I can't remember, sorry.
Do you remember anything about what you heard?
No, sorry.
Okay, don't worry. And how far would you say, if you can estimate for us, how far were you from your bedroom window from where the men were fighting?
Couple of feet.
All right. Okay. It's very difficult
Yeah.
to gauge, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you say they were fighting, are you able to help the chair by describing what they were doing?
Just punching each other.
And can you remember if Sheku was punching the other man, where he was punching him?
Not really, sorry, no.
And what about the other man? Do you remember anything about what he was doing?
No, sorry.
How long did you watch the fight?
It was only a few minutes. And then they both got up. The other man ran away to the left and Sheku went in his house.
I wonder if I could ask you to look at a map.
Yeah.
It might be helpful if we look at that now, actually. I'd like to go to the scene overview, please, Miss Wildgoose. If you could just bear with us
Yeah.
for a moment while we zoom in on this. That's lovely, thank you. So you'll see on the screen that there's a map's appeared.
Yeah.
And do you see the red rectangle in the left hand?
I do, yes.
Yeah, and that's around Arran Crescent.
Yeah.
We heard evidence about this yesterday.
Yeah.
And that's where your bedroom window was. in
Yeah.
Arran. Can I tell you that as you look at that screen, it's possible for you to touch the screen,
Right, yeah.
and a red circle will appear, and it will show us where your house was effectively. Would you be able to do
Yeah.
that? Thank you. So that's what really around the word crescent.
Yeah.
Now, if you didn't like the position of that, you can move it around if you want, by putting your finger back on the screen.
No, that's fine.
Are you happy
Yeah.
with that? Thank you. You told us earlier that your window looked to the front of
Yes.
the property. And could you point out where you saw Sheku fighting with the other man?
Just touch the screen.
Yeah. We can do smaller circles as well if that's better for you.
Put it there.
Yes.
Then,
We've also got a function that allows you to draw a line
Right,
if you'd
right.
prefer to do that. Right.
put it there.
So the same sort of area.
Yeah.
Yeah. After the fight, you described Sheku getting up.
Yeah.
Where did he go?
Went to his house.
What direction was that in? I think.
To the left.
Now, when you say to the left, can I ask you to draw a line on this map so that the chair can understand
Yeah.
what left means?
That's what I am.
Right.
Just,
So, as you were looking out your bedroom window, was he travelling to your left, which would be in the direction of Cramond Gardens?
that's correct, yes.
Thank you. Did you notice anything about him at that time?
No.
Did you see where he went once he went to the left?
Just went into his house.
Did you see anything? Did you see him again after that?
No, I just went back to bed after that.
Can I ask you to look at the other statement in front of you, please? And this is PERC statement 00110. And that'll come up on the screen, but
Yeah.
you've got the hard copy, remember. And you'll see that this is a slightly different layout. It's got your name and your your year of birth. And then if we could just come down slightly, Miss Wild Goose. Stop. Go up a little bit so I can see. And we see in the middle it says by, and that's investigator Ross Stewart, and place his home address. And you'll see above it, date and time 12th of May 2015 at 15:45.
Right.
And this statement says that it was taken at your house on the 12th of May 2015 at 15:45. Do you remember giving this statement?
No.
You've no reason to doubt that it's correct, though, that you did give this statement.
I did give it, I could slightly remember, but a long time ago.
And were you asked to sign it or confirm that it was correct at that time?
Can't remember.
Remember. Right. Can I ask you to look at the... I'm wondering now if this signature has been redacted as well, Miss Wild Goose. All right, don't look at that. There's no need. If I tell you that the original version has a signature,
Yeah.
which is yours, would that be correct?
Yeah.
Thank you. And you understood that they were trying to get a note of your evidence on that day, the 12th of May?
Yes.
Thank you. And did you try to tell them, to the best of your knowledge, the truth of what you remembered at that time?
Yes, I did, yes.
Thank you. Was your memory better then than it is now, would you say?
Yes, probably, yeah.
Could you look at paragraph 2, please? Sorry, on page 2. And you'll see that it starts, I think it was about 6:30, 7:45 in the morning. And you were in your bedroom, and you say, I heard banging as well, as if something was hitting against my next door neighbour's fence.
Yep.
I'm quite nosy, so I got up out of bed. Our bedroom is upstairs and the window looks out on Tarrant Crescent. Andrew stayed in bed. At this time, I looked out and initially saw nothing, nobody about. I stood at the window for about a minute. I could still hear shouting. I could hear a man shouting, "Please stop, I'm sorry." Do you remember saying that at the time?
Yeah, now that I'm looking at it, I could remember, yeah.
Is it coming back to
Yeah.
you? And is that an accurate
Yeah.
statement of what
Yes,
you saw?
it is, yeah.
And then underneath that, the next paragraph, you say, 2 men appeared to my right on the pavement outside. They must have been on the ground on the pavement and I couldn't see them because there is a fence there. Do you remember that?
Yes, yeah.
Is that correct
Yes,
as well?
it is, yeah.
When they stood up, I saw 2 men. One of the men ran to my left down Arran Crescent and out of sight. I would describe the man as being early 30s, maybe about 6 foot tall, slim build, tanned complexion, not white but not black, thick black hair, dark clothing. Do you remember seeing that?
No, not.
Have you any reason to doubt that that is what you said on the 12th of May 2015?
No, I just can't remember.
If we can carry on looking at thank you. And then, thank you, Miss Wilkes. It was daylight outside and I think it had been raining. I then recognised my neighbour, Sheck. He was wearing a dark coloured top, navy blue or black top with a yellow or green stripe down both arms. He then kind of walked fast and followed the boy up the street. Do you remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you. And there was no more shouting and I didn't see any of the 2 of them with anything in their hands, no weapons or anything. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And then I'd like to look at the next couple of paragraphs, please. Maybe Miss Wilgus can... thank you. So this paragraph reads, when I was looking out my window and just before they both stood up, Sheck was actually on top of the other boy and Sheck was punching the other boy. He punched him 5 or 6 times. I couldn't see where the punches landed. This was at the end of the gate, just at the hedge. They were on the ground for a couple of minutes. I forgot to say this at the start of my statement. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Do you remember anything more about that part of your statement?
No, sorry, not.
And then the final paragraph we can see on the screen says, when I first seen the men fighting on the ground, my husband got out of his bed as well and stood behind me. And then you go on to talk about what happens there. And towards the end of that paragraph, line 5, they said the 2 men were still fighting for maybe 30 seconds after that. When I say fighting, it was Sheck that was doing all the punching. I didn't see the other boy punching back or fighting back. I only heard this man shouting at the start of this fight, "Stop, please stop, I'm sorry." Do you remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you. Can I ask you just to leave that for the moment now, Miss Wildgoose, and look for me at a still piece of footage which will come from the evidence video timeline, if that's possible, Miss Wildgoose. And it'll be 7:09:20. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to get a piece of footage shown to you,
Yeah.
but let me explain what you'll see on the screen first.
Yeah.
So as we watch through it, you'll see on the top left-hand corner, there's a grey rectangle that says real time. We've heard evidence about this yesterday from experts saying that real time, the actual time, was 7:09 in the morning and 21 seconds. You can ignore the coloured things underneath that. And then you'll see the window there on the left-hand side, it says dash cam footage. So this is footage from the dash cam on someone's car.
Yeah.
And it was taken on the 3rd of May 2015. I'm going to play about 10 seconds of this to you.
Yeah.
And you'll see a figure appearing on the screen, and I'd like to ask you some questions once the footage is finished playing.
Yeah,
So we'll play it through once, we'll go back, and I'll ask you some questions. Is that okay?
that's fine, yeah.
Thank you. So I'll ask Miss Wildgoose to do that. Thank you. So as Miss Wildgoose rewinds that, do you recognise that street actually?
Yeah, it's Temple Avenue.
Temple Hall Avenue,
Yeah.
thank you. And how far from that street is Arran Crescent, would you say?
A few minutes walk.
Thanks. Right, thank you. We've now got the footage showing at 7:09 in the morning at 30 seconds. Do you see the figure that's there
Yeah.
on the roadway?
Yeah.
Do you recognise that figure?
Yeah, it looks like Sheku.
Right. That's the man you've been telling us about.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Anything else? Thank you very much. I have no further questions for this witness.
Again, no applications were placed before me in writing. Are there any applications at this stage? No, thank you. Ms. Rhodes, thank you very much for coming and giving evidence. That's your evidence complete now.
Right, thank you.
Now, Ms. Grimm, I think according to the schedule, the next witness is for 2 o'clock. Is that right?
Right, I'd scheduled the next witness, Harry Kohlberg, for 2 o'clock. Events of this morning have taken me
Yes.
out of my order.
Well, we just have a slightly longer lunch time. We'll sit again at
Thank
2
you.
o'clock.